thing to keep in mind is that you're not getting a 1 this year.
Right.
Unless you're super creative. There's no David Price out there. There's no Johnny Cueto out there. It's like, do you believe in Rich Hill enough to ship over a whole boatload of prospects for him and make him your number one guy? I think he's a nice piece, but I don't think you're going to feel good about paying the cost and prospect capital for him.
Right.
So I think what's going to happen is that they're going to try to make a run at somebody with some control, and if that's not going to happen, then they're going to have to sit back and reassess and say, well, maybe we just ride Drew Hutchison, try to get another depth starter and add a reliever.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a bunch of different things that are going to play. I think the market, more than anything, is going to dictate what happens.
Do you think that they are going to look at, when you talk about a controllable player, we're not eliminating position players either, are we, from the discussion?
No, I think that's why, that was the thought with Jay Bruce back at spring training, is that there was another year of control with him. And, there's so much uncertainty in the outfield with both Batista and Michael Saunders headed for free agency, that it would make sense. And that, this is a team that has a lot of free agents, but they're still going to have a lot of pieces. And there's enough of a core of starting pitching, good quality starting pitching here, that they can be competitive beyond this season. So, I think Texas last year, the deadline is a great model. It's like, they spent a bunch of prospect capital, but they got Sam Dyson, they got Cole Hamels. Both are immediate help, but also long-term pieces too, and that's the kind of shopping that I think the Blue Jays would prefer to do. Whether or not they could pull it off, that's another question. Because you think, last year, the Blue Jays didn't intend on getting David Price, right? Their plan was to get Troy Tulowitzki and Carlos Carrasco from the Indians, and they were able to get Tulowitzki. Carrasco fell through, and then they had to readjust. So, those types of deals are very difficult to make. But as the Rangers showed last year, and the Jays with Tulowitzki, they are possible.
And, one of the things we talk about this a great deal. We talk about how the Jays have moved a lot of their prospects already, how they did last year. But we've seen, haven't we, that the cost of adding another starting pitcher, for whatever reason, sometimes it isn't as high as we think it is. There are pitchers who move, and quite often our first reaction is that's all they got for him. And I think that says a couple of things. One, it says that, especially when it comes to free agents, teams are perhaps more willing to make a deal to get somebody else's minor league or somebody else who's been in the minors for a couple of years, so that the amount of time needed to be invested in getting that player to the majors has been cut down, because effectively another organization's already done a lot of your work for you. But I also think, Shi, in a lot of ways, it's just a reflection of the market that teams realize that you're just not going to get a blue chip prospect necessarily from somebody for your starting pitcher. It's just not going to happen.
Right, and the guy that you do get the blue chip prospect for is the David Price, the Johnny Cueto, the guy who's gonna you can put your head down at night, sleep comfortably, knowing he's gonna give you the performance, right? And then that's a guy like Andrew Kashner from the Padres, for instance, right? It's like, he's got great stuff, a great arm, but he's always injured, and the performance has been erratic. And he could be great for a 3-month stretch or a 2-month stretch, but he can also be a train wreck. So, that guy doesn't cost you as much because there isn't the certainty. The other thing to keep in mind is that beauty is often the eye of the beholder when it comes to prospects, is that not every team evaluates guys the same way. I was asking some people about the return the Padres got from the Marlins for Fernando Rodney, and saying, this is a third-round guy who doesn't have a lot of buzz about him. Is that a high price? And they were saying no, from our perspective, but we don't know how the Padres evaluated him. Maybe the Padres really like him or see something they really believe in. And so that's another factor that gets thrown in the mix too. But I Rich Hill, I think, probably ends up getting a blue chip prospect, but I'm not sure how many other pieces that could be out there end up really bringing back a premium return.